Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile, and today we're going to take a look at the Sony MDR-CD900ST. I want to thank Erik for sending these over for a review. Do greatly appreciate it. Erik, you rock. Alright, so the Sony MDR-CD900ST is a studio monitor headphone, and you primarily see it over in Japan. Not so popular here in the US. So when Erik offered to send it over and asked if I wanted to review it, I said, yes, I would love to hear it. I'm very much interested in it and how it compares to my Allo S4R and the AKG K275. So this is a studio monitor headphone. It is often used by vocalists, and it is because it has a very strong center focus, and it's actually built by Sony to replicate the sound of a singer being directly in front of the microphone. So a lot of times singers are very close to a microphone, within inches of it, and the center focus of the Sony MDR-CD900ST is built so that it is very much focused on the center and on the vocalist. Build-wise, the Sony MDR-CD900ST is very light. It's about 200 grams. It does have an attached cable that's about 2.5 meters long, and it defaults into a 1/4 inch. This is not a screw-on. This is not anything of the sort. It's just a pure 1/4 inch because it's built to go into soundboards or mixers, and it's not really meant for portable use. It does have 40 millimeter dome silk driver, and it is 63 ohms of impedance, 106 decibels of sensitivity, and a frequency response of 5 hertz to 30 kilohertz. So it's not the easiest headphone to drive. Does take a little bit of power. Works best on the desktop setups or off of a soundboard or a mixer or something of those sorts. Did not use this in testing on portable devices at all. I only used it off of a desktop setup and in a soundboard, which was a Allen & Heath QU24. All right, then back to the build. The build is quite simple. Very thin headband that has enough comfort and padding on it to do its job, but not enough to really put you into bliss mode. Sliders, a little bit of branding, right and left, pads rotate, twist a little bit. It's plastic build, but it feels durable, feels light, feels good in the hand. Again, attached cable. All right, so pads. The pads that are on here are not the stock pads. These are the stock pads, and yeah, they're extremely thin and extremely uncomfortable. When you put them on my ears, I can feel the driver assembly on the inside. And there's this little, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera or not. There it is. Whoops. And there's this little foam that goes around right there where the dome is. And it's just a little donut. And it presses up against the ear, and the driver is right up against the ear. It's just extremely uncomfortable to wear. I can only get through a couple songs before these are hurting my ears with the stock pads on. And so on went the Yaxi pads that Erik included, and the Yaxi pads are so much better. They're not near as flimsy. They have a lot more density to them, and they add a lot of depth to it. Now that did affect the sound signature, and it affected it in a way that is very pleasing, but also you have to be aware of the differences. So with the flat, flimsy stock pad, your center focus is extremely close, and it feels like the singer and vocalist is right in your head. It's like you are the singer. They're extremely close. And everything else about the instruments and any other details are kind of in the distance, and it's a little bit thinner and a little bit brighter sounding, and the bass does not have near the impact with the stock pads on. And so if you're very much about only wanting to hear the vocalist and don't really care about everything else, the stock pads are good. Yaxi pads balance that out, make it more cohesive, and so you still have a very strong center focus, very much a vocal presence, but all the instruments and all the details and everything else that's around that vocalist comes to light and is more balanced and cohesive, and it sounds more natural and realistic, in my opinion. But if you really need to hone in and just focus on the vocalist, use the stock pad. All right, so all sound impressions will be done using the Yaxi pads. Way more comfortable and just sound better, in my opinion. How do they sound? The bass on here is a mid bass humped. It does bleed slightly into the lower mids, and it's just enough of a bleed to give a little bit of warmth and body to it. Overall, the bass has a good mid bass presence. Sub bass, you can get a little bit of details, but you don't get any real slam. You don't get any major impact out of the sub bass, but you can hear the details that are there when called upon in the mix. But for the most part, these are a mid bass, upper bass present headphone. And it's a very pleasing sound, has good impact, good slam, and has a nice details and clarity. The tonality is very nice on the bass. You can follow all of the instruments. You can get all the details and the clarity. Everything moves around where it should. It does a very nice job in the bass, and it's just not the most sub bass present. Mids have a nice presence to them, are very vocally focused, and they're very detailed, have good clarity and nice air around everything, have good isolation and separation of instruments. Tonality is right where it should be. Everything sounds realistic, everything sounds natural and true. Do not have any issues with timbre, and you can follow each and every instrument through the melody. And then into the treble. The treble is a little bit accentuated and has a little bit of brightness to it, but it never goes into harsh mode or sharpness mode. It rides the fine line. So I've mentioned it before in other videos where you're driving down the road and you have the middle line, and if you go left of it, you're crossed into the other person's lane. And if you go to the right of it, you get farther away from the middle. And these ride as close as they can without crossing over that line. They're right on that center line, and they don't waver from it. So if you like sparkly and energy, here you go. Here's the Sony MDR-CD900ST. So that center line is what they follow, and they're close to getting too much, but they never cross over. I'm ready to fatigue you, but I'm not going to. I'm going to. And I really like the treble on them. It's very detailed, very clean, very clear, and it's well controlled. And as I said, it stays within its boundaries, but it knows where that boundary is. Soundstage wise, it's fairly close. It's not intimate, but it's not wide. It's a little bit less than average for a closed back headphone, but it does a really good job with imaging and depth. And so it makes up for its shortcomings and width with the tracking that it does. So if you have somebody who, there's a center microphone on a stage and somebody's directly in front of it, and then they waver over to one side or over to the other, it does a really good job of tracking that, and you can hear it in the headphone as they move across. So if you have your headphones on, there we go. If you have your headphone on and somebody's right directly in front of the microphone, and then they move over to one side and they move over to the other, if you had your eyes closed or you were looking down, you could hear it in your headphones, and you would look up and the person would be over here, and you'd be like, yep, that's what I'm hearing. And it would just move across the stage. It just follows everything through. If you have multiple instruments playing on different microphones, you will hear it over here if only one of them's playing, or if one's playing over here. It does a really good job with tracking and imaging. And then it gives you enough of a depth to be able to tell you that you have different rows and that you have different seatings, but it's not going to define it like with real good efficiency. So you'll just know, okay, that one's behind the other, that one's behind, but you won't be able to say, okay, that's third row or fourth row. Overall, I like the Sony MDR-CD900ST. Told you it's a hard model number. MDR-CD900ST. There we go. And I really enjoy them. I like them a whole lot. They're fun. They're engaging. You can use them both settings, either for monitoring, and they do a good job of being accurate. So while I was using them at church and I had them on my head, I didn't hear any weird resonances or reverbs that I had to take them off and listen to the live session. I could just trust them and know it. The only thing that I had to be a little bit wary of is that these were giving off a little bit more bass presence and a little bit more oomph and body than what was actually coming across because of that mid bass and lower mids bleed just a little bit. It's not too much. So if you're aware of it, just be aware of the extra bass presence, and you can tweak it accordingly on your EQ if necessary. But while I had them on my head and either the pastor was preaching or the special music was playing or the pianos in congregation were singing, I could have them on and I knew exactly what was coming in and what was going out. I could trust the Sonys to be accurate, so that when I had them on my head and I took them off, they sounded very similar. How do they compare to the Allo S4R? The Allo S4R obviously is a lot heavier, a little bit better build with the metal. Not near as comfortable. They have a lot smaller of pads. And sound-wise, the Allo is a little bit more full body, has a little bit more tone and timbre. The Sonys and the Allo are about the same on detail retrieval and resolution. But the problem with the Allo is that when you're tracking things live and you're using them as a monitor, that they have this reverby accentuation. And so a lot of times you'll have them on your head and you'll hear this reverby resonance ringing, and you're like, is that coming through my system? And you'll have to take them off your head and you won't hear it, and you'll put them back on and you hear it, and it's just very distracting, and it's not accurate and true. The AKG K275s are slightly heavier, but in my opinion, they're just a little bit more comfortable. I actually find that the AKG fits my head a little bit more. I can wear them for a little bit longer. Plus, you get the nice replacement pads. If you put the brainwave pads on, they are more comfortable. It doesn't really affect the sound signature too much. Stock pads are more comfortable than the stock pads of the Sony. As far as sound, the AKG is a little bit brighter and a little bit more airy sounding, and does not have that mid bass hump like the Sonys do. I find that if you want to use a headphone that is a little bit more detailed and just a little bit more accurate as far as in bass presence, that the AKG would be the one to lean towards. But as far as overall just jamming out, having an all-around headphone, the Sony is the better one. So depending on what your usage is and what your preference is, both of these are excellent choices. I like the Sony for the all-around fun factor, and I like the AKG for the more true monitoring. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Speaking of next time, somewhere on the screen, subscription link, notification bell. If you haven't already, please check those off. And then don't forget to check out the links down below for information how you can contact the channel, follow the channel, support the channel, all that kind of good stuff. Recommended gear, recommended playlists, everything down below. And also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This has been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and have yourself a great day.